This is Freedom Investor Radio, and I'm John Pearl. It hit me like a freight train when I realized there was a better way. When I discovered that I could take my future into my own hands. When I realized I could invest my way to freedom. This is what I'm working towards. In each episode of Freedom Investor Radio, we will explore the tactics and strategies used by the top real estate investors and entrepreneurs in the nation. We will learn how you can start investing your way to freedom and take control of your life. Thanks so much for tuning in. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Freedom Investor Radio. Today, I'm joined by Melanie McDaniel of Freestyle Capital Group. Melanie, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Melanie is the founder of Freestyle Capital Group, and I'm just going to go ahead and pass it on to Melanie. So Melanie, if you could kind of discuss your upbringing, if there was any talk of real estate investing or the level of financial discussion that was going on, and what kind of led you into real estate investing as you got older?
So zero real estate growing up. I know my parents, they bought a condo that my sister lived in when she was in college, and they should have held on to that condo because it was in St. George, Utah. But I don't know if they even knew what they were doing. They just thought, oh, it will save on rent for her, but whatever. Anyway, so no, I was raised in a blue collar family, go to school, get good grades, maybe go to college, get a job, preferably one with a pension because my dad worked for the state of Utah. My mom, even though she worked for herself, she was contracted. She worked for one company that gave her all her business. She was a stenographer. So I was raised, live within your means, work, get a job and live, within whatever means that is. So as a young person, I at one point thought I wanted to be a doctor. And my dad talked me out of it. He's like, you really want to go to school that long and have all that debt? I'm like, I guess not. I mean, whatever. I could have done anything I wanted to do, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I joined the military at 17 because I'm a big traveler and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't waste my time in school. I wanted to get out from under my parents' wings. I wanted to get out of Utah. I wanted to travel the world. So I had an appointment, I think, to go talk to the Army first. And then I was early. So I stepped into the Navy's office and they're like, oh yeah, you're going to travel. I'm like, okay, sign me up. So I ended up in the Navy at 17. Did that, was getting antsy, bored. My brain is pretty wild. I have to be doing stuff. I like fulfillment, and I didn't have the fulfillment. I'm like, I'm as good as I'm going to be at this job. I want to go to school. So I got out of the Navy, went to school. I studied travel administration. That was what my bachelor's degree is. Because it's the only thing I knew that I loved to do was travel. And then I started working for like a submarine company in Maui. Or no, it was at Oahu. I was on Oahu in Waikiki. And I realized, okay, this is a dead end job, right? There's no corporate ladder to climb. And if I did want to climb their corporate ladder, it was pretty minimal. So I had some GI Bill funds left. So I went and got my master's degree in leadership. And I was kind of getting antsy, not fulfilled. I saw my dad's wife. She was a park ranger. She worked at Rocky Mountain National Park. And I had visited and I saw her doing search and rescue and some fire stuff and, of course, law enforcement. That was her main job. I thought, well, I could do that. That's interesting. I like search and rescue, maybe some medical. So I thought, oh, I'll do that as a stepping stone for a while. And so I became a park ranger, federal. Great career, great pension, right? Everything, checking all those boxes that I was raised to check. I did 9 years, but in like year 6 or 7, I was just very unfulfilled. Again, like boring. I know everything. I'm excelling in everything that my chief or anybody would have me do, but I wasn't fulfilled. I was bored out of my freaking mind. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and that's what changed my life, like many people in the world, and realized I was trading my time for money, that I didn't have to be limited to the means of my job. I was meant for more. I knew that. I was an entrepreneur that I never knew inside of me, because while I was a park ranger, I had a blog. At one point, I had a podcast. This was back in 2012. I had a podcast. I started one. I was like, I should have stuck with that.
One of the originals.
I'm telling you, it was a travel podcast. It's no longer exists, so we won't even talk about it. I did all sorts of stuff. I created a drop shipping store and designed all these leggings that could be sold online. And then I got bored of that. Anyway, I had this little entrepreneurial spirit in me that I would just keep me entertained while I had my dumb job. So I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, decided I was going to jump into real estate. I did the Rich Dad Poor Dad training program, which is one of those guru training programs that costs a lot of money, right? I learned a lot about real estate, didn't know anything prior to that. So I thought, well, I'll be a real estate agent as a stepping stone, because now I've learned enough that I can help other people do their investments while I figure out what I wanted to do, because it wasn't appealing to me to do single family rentals. Flipping isn't even an investment. That's a job, really, unless you own the business that flips the houses. It is really just a job, in my opinion. So I didn't want to do that. I knew I wanted to go bigger so I could go faster. And the bigger you go, I feel like the more professional you have to be to even get a foot in the door. So I thought, well, if I can be the newbie and I can just partner with people who are big already, that might be a quick way to move along. So apartments started sounding pretty interesting. So I did Michael Blanc's coaching program there, which kind of led me to liking on the GP, on the GP stack, there's lots of jobs. And I really just decided I like to talk to investors and raise capital. So that is where I am now.
That's great. No, that's a great story. A lot of stuff stood out and I had a lot of questions along the way, but you kind of covered a lot of my questions. One of the things that stood out is you were kind of brought up to be a W-2 employee, it sounds like, and you discovered on your own that that's not the world for you and that you have an entrepreneurial spirit. That's similar to my own story, and real estate has kind of been scratching that itch for me. And so that's awesome. So Melanie, it seems like you're everywhere. I follow you on social media. It seems like you're in New Orleans one week, Mexico in the next week, Dallas the day after that. You're all over the place. Now, how are you able to do this? And how does this play into your business and real estate investing?
Well, part of the reason I left the job, besides the obvious reason for wealth building, is I was tired of asking someone else if I could go on a vacation. Can I have time off? And then being limited to a couple weeks a year. That is just no way to live, especially for someone like me who I would just be hungry to be in the world. Like it was awful. It was terrible. I think the longest I ever got off was 3 weeks. And I went to India to do my yoga teacher training in 2016. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes me so happy. Why am I stuck in this job? Anyway, so when I became a real estate agent, I knew that was going to be a push period. I go through these ebbs and flows. I go through these push and pull back and push and pull back. And every time I push, it's another leap forward. So I knew that time I was just going to be dedicated to work, because that career transition from park ranger to real estate agent was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life. And I've jumped out of planes, I've jumped off bridges, and I was in the military, and I've done a lot of things, but that was the scariest thing. I didn't have much support. My dad told me, don't do something stupid like quit your job. He said that once. And then when I did quit my job, he's like, well, don't be calling me for money. I think, Dad, you're motivating me. Thank you for that. Not in the way probably that you hope, but looking back on it, and I've told him how I felt, that I didn't even want to tell him the truth. I don't know if he feels bad or what, but he was scared for me, right? He was my dad. He wanted what's best for me. And in his mind, knowing what he knew, it scared him. Well, it scared me too, but whatever. I did it anyway because I had confidence in myself that whatever I put my mind to, I excel in. So during the agent period, I did go on a couple trips. I think I went to Dominican Republic and I went to Spain, and it was awful because I had to work. I was writing contracts in Spain. It just was not a lifestyle I wanted. So in the next push, I wanted to, with this capital raising piece, and this is why I kind of chose that piece, not just because I love the piece, because I do, but I didn't want to do acquisitions. I don't want to talk to brokers. I don't want to tour properties. I don't want to do that stuff because it requires my body to be in a geography. I want to do something that my body can be anywhere in the world, that I have Wi-Fi and I can take calls and talk to investors. I can talk to sponsors. And yes, I do make an effort to get to my properties. I've been to every property I've ever raised capital for, and I plan to continue to do that. It is important, but it's not the day-to-day stuff. I don't want to manage assets. That requires you to be somewhere, right? So when I set out to design my life intentionally, I thought, well, what on the GP stack gets me equity because I'm an investor, I want to build wealth, and what can I do to bring value to the GP? And that's to raise capital. So when I left the real estate agent, to answer your question, how do I do that? Right. In 2019, I'd been an agent for 2.5 years. The first 6 months were dry and scary. The next year I did well. And then that final 6 months or so, I started a team and started getting some passive income because I would get shares or splits with my people on my team. I would just provide them leads. They'd close a deal. I get 30%. And I could stop working as much. And then I knew it was time to transition to the next thing. So I left Virginia where I was an agent. My team was still performing. I said, guys, give me 6 months of a runway, and then I will give you the team. I will give you my database, and I'll step out. So they're like, cool. So for 6 months of that first period of my transition, I had that passive income coming in as the team lead. Plus, I had saved up quite a bit of money. So for the first year, and this was 2020, right? January 2020, I go to Thailand. That was my first stop as a nomad. I was homeless, sold everything except my car and a few belongings. I literally ditched everything. Moved to Thailand. And then, of course, coronavirus happens, right? I had my whole year of 2020 planned. I was going to Buenos Aires. I was going to Mexico City, Medellin, Colombia, Peru, Lima, Peru. Anyway, all sorts of stuff planned and canceled pretty much. I get home from Thailand. My next stop was Mexico. I went to the best ever conference. And then that day that I was supposed to go to Mexico was the day that we couldn't leave, or we weren't sure if we could come back if we didn't leave, right? Mexico never shut down. You could always go there. So I hunkered down with my mom in Salt Lake City. I kept talking to investors, but I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not raising capital right now. I don't care. And people weren't really doing deals. The people that I followed and looked up to in the space, they weren't really doing deals. So from February, well, we'll say March, whatever, on till about July, I just sat tight, lived off my savings. So that I'm lucky I had a runway. I'm lucky I had my team, and because they kept selling real estate. And then July 2020 came along, and I saw operators starting to buy, operators that I respected, but they also weren't calling me for capital. I'm like, hey, I thought, we talked, and when you had the deal, you'd call me like, oh, we're good. We have enough capital because we just went through 6 months and didn't buy anything. And it happened 3 different sponsors. And then I was like, crap, there's something wrong with me. I need to expand. I need more options. So which is a silver lining to this whole COVID thing, is we went online in 2020. Meetups were popping up everywhere that were virtual. Conferences were virtual. It was a blessing in disguise, right? This whole COVID thing. And I think 2020 really launched my business forward. I had to take a step back, right? But I built a lot of relationships. I think relationships, this is a people business, and real estate's just the vehicle, right? It's really about people and relationships. So that was my transition, and that was my focus. And to pay for all my travels and whatever, it was that passive income. And then in 2021, it took until summer of 2021. So I had a dry spell from 2019 to 2021 in being a capital, raiser or whatever. And then I closed 3 deals back to back. So filled the pipeline back in, or the money pipeline, I should say. And now, again, living off of those savings. But every time I do a deal, I take equity positions. So I am building my wealth. But moving forward, I just need to do more deals, raise more capital, which, doesn't happen overnight. You have to grow into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Melanie, one thing that really stood out to me there that I think is just awesome. By the way, your story is super inspiring. But what stood out was you recognized you were unhappy, and you actually took action to change your life. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there that are unhappy in their situations. What do you think was unique about you or your situation that enabled you to get over that hump and actually go out and do what you knew was right for your life, as opposed to just staying unhappy in your current or your old W-2 job? What do you think? How can other people do that same thing?
Well, first of all, awareness is the first step. Being aware that you're miserable, being aware that you're unfulfilled, being aware that you want to make that change, right? That's the first thing. Some people, they don't even know that they have options, right? And then once you're aware of it, then it's a mindset thing. I listened to Bigger Pockets while I was on patrol in my patrol car, hours and hours and hours. We're for at least 2 years of being on patrol and listening to Bigger Pockets, reading books, and not always just real estate books. There was a book that definitely changed my mindset. It's called The Power of Now, which is about living in the present moment, right? And not being a victim of your situation, taking responsibility for your life so you can change it. If it's someone else's fault that you are who you are and where you are, you've given the power away. And once you take responsibility for it, I'm not saying that you're taking the blame, right? Someone could have harmed you or done something to you, fine, but it's your choice what you do moving forward. So it was just a lot of mindset. I would listen to these YouTube video compilations like mindset or motivation, and they're like compilations. You'll hear Gary Vee, you hear Jim Rohn, you'll hear Tony Robbins, and just all these really great mindset people. And it's a compilation of these short speeches set to music. So I would put that on and go do my run or my workout. Instead of just listening to music, I would listen to these mind feed, I would call it, every morning mind feed, because it's, mindset. If I had to say one word, it was mindset. I needed to change my upbringing, what I was taught, from go to school and get a job, live within your means, to there is no cap on your wealth. There is nothing you can't do if you want it bad enough. The law of attraction, all that stuff, I believe in it to a great extent. I don't think you can just sit around and hope and think great thoughts and things will come there. You do have to act. But at the base of it, it's the awareness, and then it's the mindset to support that leap, whatever your leap is.
I love it so much. You're speaking to me. You're speaking my language. I want to talk about networking. So I know you're huge on networking. Can you kind of talk about your strategy with networking, why you do it so much, how other people can be effective with networking? You go to a conference, sometimes can feel awkward at first. You feel like you're out of place if you're one of the newbies. What are some tips and tricks?
Yeah, well, I think it's super important. Like I said, I think we're in a relationship business and real estate is just the vehicle. But it does help if you have a real interest in real estate and you understand the why you're there, why real estate. If you have a conviction about the why real estate and you love to deal with people, then a conference should be like heaven on earth, right? But I would say, okay, I have a coach now for raising capital from high net worth individuals. I have a performance coach. And he always cracks me up because he's funny. He's like, don't stab people with your business card. Like, do not just go stab someone with your business card and run away. I don't even have business cards. People have to ask me for something. I'm like, well, I don't have one, but I can add you. I have a digital business card, and I create a contact card in my phone so I can just send it to them. But when I send it to them, I collect their phone number because I text them my contact card. I have an Apple phone. So that's just the easiest way for me to do it. And then they get my face, my phone number, all my social media links, my website links, all built into my contact card. So that's what I do, but I will initiate trading contact information. If I'm having a great conversation with somebody, I'm going to initiate that. But usually people ask me for my card and I don't have one to give them. So that's a conversation to have. Like, well, I'm a minimalist. Like, I don't want your card. What am I supposed to do with this? I don't know what to do with this. So I trade info. And then, so just a tip, if you're going to a conference, if it's a 3-day conference, try to meet a couple people a day and really, really connect with them. Don't try to meet 50 people a day unless you're just really good at following up and remembering people. I don't even bother. Like, if I leave a conference and I've met 2 great people, maybe 4, I feel like it was a success. Because honestly, I can go to one conference, meet one person, they invest one time, and I've paid for that conference 6 times over. So it just depends on why you're going. Are you meeting sponsors? Are you looking for partners? Are you looking for investors? Are you an investor looking for a deal? Like, be targeted, know what you're looking for. And then when you do find those people that you vibe with, really connect with them. Have lunch, have a drink, set a time to follow up, and then follow up.
So are you telling me that at my first conference that I ever went to, when I handed out 200 business cards to everybody I saw, that I wasn't doing the right thing?
Answer me this. How many investors did you pull out of those 200 business cards?
It's so funny to think back because what you're saying is so true. And I had to learn that, I learned that eventually, but yeah, definitely want to try to create those deep relationships and not just spray people with your business cards and, hope something good happens out of it.
You want to do something different. You know what? Yeah. I should make a tattoo or a stamp and be like, give me your arm, stamp their arm. And they're like, don't do it now, but when you get back before your shower tonight, write my information down.
That's
I don't
great.
know. Stand out. Do something different
No,
than
absolutely.
just poking people with your business card.
Absolutely. Melanie, let's move on and talk about what you're working on now. So you started Freestyle Capital Group, and that's a fund. Can you kind of talk about how your fund works, and maybe for people who aren't aware how a fund works in terms of real estate, if you kind of dive into that a little bit?
Yeah. So Freestyle Capital Group is kind of my company. It's just kind of my brand. Freestyle Fund is the fund. And so there's different kinds of funds. There's blind funds where the operators will say, hey, we buy real estate in these parameters. We buy in this market, in this price range, with these returns, and this vintage, and this whatever. They set these parameters. People invest in the fund, and then they can go buy anything they want that fits in those parameters and then give investors returns. So that's called a blind fund. The investors don't know exactly which building they're investing in. They don't know. They can't underwrite the deal specifically, right? They can just be like, okay, I trust you, fund manager, to go buy good stuff. Here's my money, right? And non-blind fund, sometimes there's single purpose funds where I raise capital in an SPV, single purpose vehicle or special purpose entity. There's like lots of words, fund of funds, whatever. But it's like, okay, I have this apartment, we're raising for this. They invest in the fund, then the fund invests in the deal directly. So that's one method that I have done. But I came across a customizable fund option. So people will invest in the fund, their money sits in cash. So I don't take their money just whenever. I have to have a deal. It's like a mini syndication. So here's the deal. Do you like it? They say yes. They put the money in the fund, and then they have to go into the software and allocate their funds to that specific deal. And then maybe I have a second deal and it's a triple net lease. And they're like, I don't understand triple net leases. I don't want to invest in that. No worries. The next deal is an assisted living one. And they say, well, I'm really interested in assisted living and I want to diversify my portfolio. So they invest more money in the fund, allocate it to the assisted living. And these deals are on different timelines, different business models. And maybe that first deal exits in year 3. They get their money. They can redeploy it into a new investment or take the cash distribution. And then when the assisted living cycle finishes, they'll get that money back. They can redeploy into a deal or take their cash. So it's kind of like Robinhood when you look at Robinhood for stocks, right? You're buying into shares of a syndication. You can diversify across operators, asset classes, geographies. So essentially it's customizable and you get to hand pick what you want. And since they're investing in the fund, not the deal specifically, they can be in 20 different deals, but they're going to get one K1 because the software tracks what deal and for how long they were in each deal. At the end of the year, it spits out what their depreciation is, what their cash flow is, and it calculates that in a nice little document to send to the CPA so they can issue the K1s for the fund. So,
and for anybody listening that doesn't know, a K1, if you invest passively in a syndication, that's what you would receive. And what she's saying is you can invest in multiple deals, but receive one K1 as opposed to multiple K1s, which is extremely valuable and simplifies the process greatly. So that's really cool. So you mentioned the multiple asset classes. Are you focusing or are you beginning to focus on other stuff outside of multifamily?
So multifamily value add is the bread and butter. I have specific markets I like for that. I have done assisted living, and that operator I would work with again. I'm not just all in on assisted living across the board. It's definitely the operator that I really liked. Had really high cash flow, paid monthly. It was kind of set up actually as an absolute triple net lease. So you're not really investing in the operator. You're investing in the property that leases the property to the operator. But I couldn't pass that one up. The returns were just too awesome, paid monthly. And then triple net for commercial. During COVID, you'll see industrial performed the best. Multifamily was, up there as well. So with our world going digital, we're buying stuff online. We need cold storage. We need big storage. And, maybe even we're going to bring some manufacturing back from China. Who knows? We need industrial space. And industrial performed very well during COVID. So I am trying to find deals in triple net leases, which I like because they're more cash flow plays than upside plays. So I think someone's portfolio, you should have high cash flow, but maybe some riskier investments with the upside, which are those value add multifamilies. They're a little bit more, they're less cash flow and more back end heavy. So I think a nice balance is appropriate. So that's why I look for other asset classes in the fund. Right now, I'm looking for some storage unit options. So I'm hoping by Q2, I have an option in the fund for storage units. But for sure, bread and butter to me is the multifamily space. I have deal flow for the triple net leases. And if my assisted living group had another deal, I would absolutely look at that deal to potentially bring investors into that one.
Oh, that's awesome. What type of person would benefit the most from your services?
So my fund is a 506C, so they have to be accredited. For me and my business model, I really only want 50 households that are kind of my core group. And I find investments that are interesting to them and markets that they like. Like if I bring an investment to my group and nobody invests in it, I'm probably not going to do that investment again, right? I just want to offer a white glove, personalized service to my core group of investors. So I'm looking for about 50. Of course, people will trickle in here and there, invest once, and never see them again. But my goal is to do life with my investors. I want them to be my friends. I want to know if I'm having a drink with somebody, are we having a drink as friends or are we real estate buddies? I don't know. This is how I want to build my business. I don't want to have a line drawn. Okay, I'm off work. No, I'm just hanging out with my friends. Same with my sponsors. I want to be buddies with my sponsors too, after fully vetting them and making sure that I like their underwriting and that I want to partner with them. But then, just do life together. So the people who would benefit are people who want to reach out to me and they want to be one of my 50, right? Accredited and can invest a few times a year would be ideal. But I also do opportunities for non-accredited or sophisticated investors, one-off here and there. I do have some outlets for 506B offerings. So any investor I'd be happy to chat with, whether it's just for education or if they want to invest or see what I do, then of course, I'd be happy to talk to anybody.
Oh, that's great. You mentioned due diligence on potential co-sponsors. What does the process of that look like? And what does that mean for anyone who may not know what you mean by that?
So the sponsor is the person actually running the deal. So it's super important to dig into who they are, like they're the jockey, right? We put a bet on the jockey, not the horse, not the field, not the track. All those things matter, but it's the jockey who's running the show. And morals and values are high. So background checks, track record checks, potentially talking to any vendors they've used or their investors. If I can figure out who they are, if they make a referral, of course, they're going to send you their favorite, investors that are happy. But I want to find the people that aren't happy and talk to them. Due diligence on the actual market where the property is. And then I have a professional institutional grade underwriter who is one of my partners. He works for a decabillion-dollar fund as his W-2, but he's my partner for our deals and underwrites everything. So the underwriting is huge for me. And then the deal structure, I look at fees. I read the PPM to see if there's anything interesting in there that a normal person who doesn't really know any different would miss. I want to see an alignment with the GP and the LP. Are my LPs or my investors taking all of the risk? Are my operators getting paid regardless of how the deal performs, or are they getting paid more on a performance base? So it's more in alignment with the investors. So it's a lot of due diligence on the sponsor, the deal, everything, the whole package, because we have options out there. And what I love about what I do is, a typical buyer of a property, they're going to underwrite 100 deals, put LOIs out on maybe 20 deals, and maybe get 1 or 2 deals, right? And then they come with their little baby, like, hey, Melanie, here's my baby. Can you raise capital? And I'm like, that's an ugly baby. So, right. So I just take the cream of the crop. So if I agree to raise capital for someone or partner with them to raise capital, it's a great honor, I think. Because
that's a great way to be.
I will not do a deal unless it passes all the tests, because I would rather never raise a penny again, never put another deal in my fund again than lose an investor's money. Like, I want this to be a long-term happy business. I don't want to have to make the bad phone calls. Of course, it's a risky investment and you have to do your own due diligence as well. But I try to take some of the load off.
No, that's a great way to be. So we just wrapped up 2021, now into 2022. What are some things you're proud of from 2021, and what kind of things are you looking forward to in 2022?
2021 did my first 3 deals. So that was awesome. Made a lot of connections that will set me up for, I think, a strong 2022, and connections mostly like the sponsors. And I'm really starting to get the eye of some really big sponsors, some really, guys with really long track records. So that's exciting. 2022, I have huge goals for 2022. I want it to be a breakthrough year. This is a working year. I'm not traveling around and being nomadic. Except I just came back from Mexico 2 days ago, and I'm headed to Scottsdale for a retreat and a bunch of conferences. But other than that, like, I want to be sticky in Austin. Austin's a great market, a lot of operators here, and I've got Dallas and Houston and San Antonio all within driving distance. It is the year to buckle down and get work done. I want to raise $10 million this year, and that, depending on who's listening, it's a lot of money for someone that's relatively new in the business, which I am. My fund is launched, and I'm working on a C offering in the fund right now. So yeah, just checking off successes because it's exponential, right? If you do good by an investor, they're going to tell their friends, they're going to reinvest. And I feel 2022 is my year to get everything together, do a good job for an exponential future. So yeah, I've invested some money and time into a mastermind, and that's the retreat I'm going to here in a few days, and actually tomorrow, and just getting the right people around me and just doing work, grinding it out. That's my 2022. Business and fitness are my focuses in 2022. I'm 40. I just turned 40, so it's like this year of 40 is like, it's the year, whatever that means.
No, that's great. That's awesome. If people want to follow you and see what you're doing, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, freestylecapitalgroup.com, of course, is my website, which will link to all the socials. I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Most of my posts are kind of more motivational than anything. I do some real estate stuff once in a while, but it's the mindset piece, and it's the lifestyle and the happiness piece, I think, matters a lot. If people want to connect with me, they can email me, Melanie@freestylecapitalgroup.com. Find me on any social. I'm pretty easy to find. And if they're at conferences that I'm going to, I'd be happy to meet with anybody in person as well.
Awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Melanie McDaniel, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Freedom Investor Radio. If you like what you heard, make sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks again for listening.